seconds. 55 seconds, and we are live.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day. Welcome to our first live stream of 2023. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
We are joined.
You see, that's it. We're warming up the crowd first. Yeah.
We are joined by the wonderful Rob MacNeice from Nikon Professional Services here in the UK.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
It's going to be a fun hour, I think. Rob has actually been at the World Cup in Qatar. So we're going to talk a lot about that. But I did want to say thank you to everyone who watched our videos over Christmas and New Year's, who liked them, who did a super chat. Thank you already to Marvel for your contribution to the Coffee Fund.
Thank you very much.
Super appreciated. And a special shout out to both Brian and Alan for my birthday cards. So,
Ooh, nice.
Yes.
And Happy New Year, everyone.
And a Happy New Year. Exactly. That too.
Yeah, you know, actually, there's Orthodox Christmas tomorrow as well.
So happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas as well. Happy Becky's birthday as well in a couple of days.
Yeah, on Sunday. That's right. So lots of reasons to celebrate. Please feel free to drop your questions for Rob in the chat. I will have a look at those. I'll try and, filter them through so we ask relevant questions and pin the ones for later that we might want to ask when we've moved to a different topic. But we're going to start with how long were you in Qatar for?
It wasn't that long.
No.
Wasn't as long as England, which was
right.
good.
It's a good sign.
I was there for 2 weeks, so pretty
Wow.
much, yeah, the group stages. But the Nikon's whole sort of time there was for the whole of the World Cup for a few days before until a few days after.
Nice.
Yeah,
So what's the kind of procedure with an event like that? Do different NPS sort of, I don't know what you call them, departments, divisions? From all over the world?
Yeah, I was working as part of a big international team, and I felt very privileged to do so. I was the only UK member of the Nikon team to be there.
Oh, wow.
And we had people from all over the world. So we had some people from, a lot of people from the Middle East, because obviously local for them, some guys from Africa, some from obviously China and of course Japan, and some from the States as well. So it was a big international team, about 50 or 60 staff in total, covering the whole 5 weeks. Yeah, so it's a very big operation for Nikon.
How many photographers do you think?
So FIFA won't give us the number exactly how many photographers there are, but we would say around about 800. For various reasons. I think there were less photographers there at Qatar than there have been at previous World Cups.
Right, interesting.
I worked at the World Cup in South Africa in 2010.
I remember that one.
That was a great one. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you got those as soon as you walked into the airport. It was crazy. Right. But this was slightly less photographers this time round. But it was quite different in Qatar because all of the stadiums are all centred around Doha, so they're all very close together. Whereas in South Africa and when it's been in Russia and various other places, they've been hundreds or even thousands of miles apart. So it was all quite concentrated. So the Nikon, the kind of the NPS place was within the National Convention Centre, which was kind of, think of it like the NEC, but a bit more upmarket.
Right, yeah.
No disrespect to the NEC, by the way, we go there every year.
Yeah.
It was in that place where, and that was the main press centre for photographers. So it's where they would go. Some of them would go there to wire their images or to store their equipment in between matches and things like that. Yeah.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Seth is just dropping in to say hi.
Hi, Seth. Happy New Year.
Do you know Seth Miranda from Adorama over in New York?
Don't.
Anyway.
So I should.
Right,
Hi.
you should, yes.
Hi there.
He's probably on his way to work, so won't stay for the stream, but nice of you to drop in and a Happy New Year to you. Thank you to everyone who's also said hello from the various corners of the world that you're in, from cold Florida to sunny Spain to as far as Wirral.
Amazing.
Yeah,
hello.
Hello. And Switzerland. And thank you to, there was another one, Adrian.
Thank you, Adrian.
Your contribution to the conference, and to Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
As well. Yeah, do give the stream a like if you haven't already. I didn't mention that, but it helps the stream greatly. And you'll be very, very pleased to know that Rob does drink coffee, so we can actually treat one of our guests to a coffee.
So Coffee Fund is officially open for this year.
It is. So it's kind of interesting to hear about how MPS works in these big events, because I remember, so you didn't go to the Open year, the year before.
No, you
did.
did.
I did.
I'm not that posh.
That's very nice.
I'm not either, but I've been there every year for the last 15 years.
So I didn't get to go last year because I was away, but I went the year before, and I was thinking specifically, changing the topic from football a little bit, but to golf. But because can you take pictures on the side of the
Pitch?
No, they're not called pitches. The courses.
On the course. With the open, no, it's not possible.
That's what I thought.
You need a registered camera, so you have to. So all the official accredited photographers have to have. They have to have a bib that says they're an official photographer and an armband, and then we stick a little thing on our cameras as well to say it's an approved camera.
Wow.
So that's the rulings with the open. But with many sports events, you can take pictures, but lots of them I think are worried about people taking pictures and selling them. Understandably, we protect the professionals at the end of the day. So for many of these things, obviously you go into a stadium in the World Cup, everyone is holding up a phone, aren't they?
I know.
But you wouldn't be allowed in with a bigger camera.
When will we fit Z9 technology into one of these?
That would be great. Yes.
Made by Nikon, of course.
Well, actually, I think a couple of years ago, well, not a couple of years, but 5 years ago, there was a whole thing about photographers taking pictures, professional photographers, of the golfer swinging with a club. And obviously, the shutter click would disturb the players. Now, with obviously introduction of electronic shutter and really fast readout of Z9,
absolutely,
we eliminate that, I guess.
The Z9 has been a game changer for in every respect, as we know, and that's something I'll probably talk about a little bit on your live stream today. But especially in golf, because there is absolutely no rolling shutter on the backswing, so it changes the way people can shoot. Obviously, having a completely silent shutter as well is great for golf.
Completely game changing, actually, because when I was at the Open, the Z9 didn't exist at that point. I think we had a development announcement at that point, but that was it.
There were still film cameras?
There were still film... Well, I actually took...
Plate cameras.
I took my FM3A with me, and
that's
everyone
Becky's.
At the Nikon table was like, is that a ZFC? I'm like, no. It's actually a film camera.
Good for you.
That's what I took with me, but obviously didn't take pictures while they were swinging.
You should bring your Pentax 6.7 for that.
Oh yeah, then just throw people off, because I don't know if you've ever heard the shutter of a Pentax 6.7.
Really clunky, like just closing a door or something.
You can hear it miles away.
You can hear it.
It was a great feel. We had those at college, actually. It was a great feel to the shutter on that. It was lovely. Yeah.
Quite often used for our good friend Derek, who knows his stuff about Pentax cameras. They used to use them for forensic work as well. But I can imagine just the sound in one of these sort of quiet, very clinical environments, then kajoom with the shutter going. So no, not for golfing.
You can revive a corpse with it, no?
Thank you very much.
Have said it.
You shouldn't have. Thank you very much to Fred for your contribution to the Coffee Fund, and
thank you
to Ian and to Yaman, who said happy birthday, Becky, happy Christmas, Con.
Thank you,
and happy New Year to you both and the Grays family, of which Rob, you are an extended Grays family, so you're incorporated.
Thank you very much indeed, guys.
That was lovely, and thank you to Chris as well for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. So, what's the kind of... I will ask you questions as we go through, but I have questions.
Are we flying back to Qatar now?
Yeah, we're flying back to Qatar.
Fantastic, okay.
Because I wanted to know what the kind of average day... So the matches there were at odd times of day, right? Because
at the start of the group stage, there were actually 4 matches being played a day, which was more so than ever before. Yeah. And quite a lot of photographers were actually shooting 2 matches a day.
Wow.
So they worked really hard, these guys, going from one stadium to another and then shooting an entire different match. So Nikon would be there from early in the morning, from 7 in the morning. I was doing the late shift every day, so I was working from sort of 5 in the evening until 2 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, so I wasn't perhaps as busy as some of the guys working on the day shifts were, but we still saw a lot of photographers coming back from the late matches and so on, getting their stuff checked and cleaned. I mean, that's what we're essentially there to do, to make sure that the photographers using Nikon are happy, that their equipment's working to the best of its ability, and give them the opportunity to trial new equipment as well.
Right, so you had loan stuff there.
There was a huge amount of loan stuff there, yeah, absolutely. A lot of Z9s, yeah.
Anything like an exotic 400 2.8, did you have any of those on loan? Because they're pretty hard.
There were a few of those there.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, and for many photographers, it was their sort of first opportunity to get to trial that.
Yes.
And the feedback on the 400 2.8, as you can imagine, as I'm sure you guys have had, is just nothing short of phenomenal. Everyone loves it.
It'd be nice to get hold of more, but definitely those lucky few who've managed to put them in their hands have said that it's a stunning lens. I mean, even the 400 4.5, we got to borrow that for a couple of weeks.
That was fun.
Good.
Also had some great feedback on that. I mean, that's another one that's a bit of a game changer, isn't it, for people that aren't in the market for the 400 2.8, or they don't want that weight, they just want something small, where you don't need that extra wide aperture.
And and the 800, was that
800.
Is it too long?
So 800 is typically a little bit too powerful for football.
Right.
Where I've seen 800 being used, obviously wildlife. It's again, I'm going to keep using the word, but it's a game changer.
Yeah.
For wildlife photographers. One area, not flying away from Qatar for a moment, but one area where we were seeing it being used quite a lot last year was in the sporting environment, was at Wimbledon, but not for the tennis, but actually for the Royal Box. So for photographing the royals or the celebrities and so on that are watching the tennis, it was ideal for that. So a lot of those pictures that you would have seen on the front cover of the magazines and so on of celebrities at Wimbledon, they would have been taken on the 800, for the first time.
So there's another
Z800, of course.
Another use purpose for the
Paparazzis.
800
Yeah,
exactly. Or what do you call it? There's another word for it. It's not like lifestyle photography, but it's something like that.
Well, it could be a portrait lens,
Yeah, longest portrait lens ever.
Exactly.
Was it Matt that did?
Yes, he did 400 to 8, I think, as a portrait lens.
Portrait lens, yeah.
Right.
Because, why not? So that's very interesting. And did people then also borrow? How many photographers were using Z9s, or did you loan a lot of them?
I mean, we loaned a lot out. So the World Cup was the first opportunity for a number of photographers to use the Z9. But I was staggered at how many have already transitioned over.
Wow.
And I think, 2022 was a real sort of pivotal year for Nikon professional users, because for most of them, many of them have dipped their toes in the water with mirrorless with the likes of Z6, Z6 II, Z7 and 2, and so on. But for a lot of them, we're still using sort of D4, D5, D6,
right.
which obviously the top sports cameras,
For
but
sure.
the Z9 has come and changed all of that. So a lot of the guys, in fact, most of the UK MPS members I dealt with out there, and I think there were 19 UK photographers using Nikon at the World Cup, which was great.
Yeah.
The majority of them are using Z9s already. But for some, it was their first opportunity to trial it, and obviously we had them there to give them that opportunity. Yeah.
Which is really nice. And so do you think, but from transitioning to maybe DSLRs or Z6, Z7, did they go, wow, this camera, I'm going to move to one immediately?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, maybe not everyone's in the market for it just yet, but everyone was really just staggered by how it just makes life easier for you.
Yeah.
It's another step forward in technology that just the way that you can rely on the autofocus means that it just frees you up to think about other things, to concentrate on your composition.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the key factors with the Z9. Also, having that extra resolution, you think it's over twice the resolution of the D6.
Yeah.
So if you're at the wrong end of the match for a goal, you can send a file and they can crop in really heavily and still have a very, very good quality image to use.
Very usable picture.
At that point, you would think, I should have that 800mm with me.
Well, yes, very true. That's a good point. That is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now here's interesting. Baxter said how many were using D6s or D5s. Do you have a kind of...
Good question. I don't actually have those figures. I mean, I would say more than half of the photographers I dealt with were already using Z9s.
Okay.
There were a few. We saw a lot of D6s out there, a few D5s, even some photographers still using D4, and photographers from different markets where the economy is different and might not be able to, justify the likes of a D5. So we even saw photographers, official photographers using the likes of a D850, D810. Wow. I even saw someone using a D750 and so on. But for most of the photographers, they said, more than 50% now using Z9, but still few D5s and D6s being used.
So you think the last year basically was pivotal year to push a lot of DSLR users towards mirrorless systems?
I think so. And I think all of those photographers that have tried it just can see the benefit pretty much instantly. And obviously it is pretty much the way everything is going to inevitably go. So
sure.
Yeah, but I think 2022 was really the big one that I noticed from from doing the sporting events that we do. That was the big one for us.
Right. Yeah. And D500s, did you see any DX cameras, or was it all full frame across the boards?
I think one or two photographers use D500s. I mean, it's still a great sports camera, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
and having that crop is good as well. Having that sort of DX can work in your favour for sports.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people, I mean, we posted last week. Beginning of this week. The days have no meaning anymore since New Year. Well, whatever day it is. I think it was on Monday or Tuesday. We posted a video about our sort of 2023 predictions. inevitably there were going to be some talks of maybe another ZDX camera out there. And we did have a couple of people talking about, D500. There is a sports market for professional photographers for a D500 in Z form. Obviously, we're not going to talk about anything that can't be mentioned. Rob doesn't have secret information about any release dates or anything, so we're not even going to bother to ask those questions. But what do you, from a personal experience, do you see a kind of DX professional need, shall we say, in the market? Or do you think...
I genuinely don't know which way it's going to go, as you said. But, the D500 has been a hugely popular camera, probably more so for wildlife photographers than any other area.
Sure.
I think most sort of pro sports would rather be full frame for the advantages that brings.
Low light performance?
Low light performance being the key one, just a general greater clarity of images. I mean, the sensor on the D500 is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but you will always get better clarity, to a certain extent when the pixels aren't as dense, if you like.
Yes.
So there are advantages that having full frame brings. So I genuinely don't know. I mean, if we made a kind of a D500 equivalent mirrorless camera, would it sell? Yes. But I don't think in all areas, and certainly not the guys that we speak to most of the time, the vast majority of the pros out there are using full frame these days.
Yeah. Joshua Conti, who's a US NPS member, said, still on my D850 kick and still getting my D610 images published, but would seriously love to be on a Z9 game someday. I was talking to you just before the stream about Wildlife Photographer of the Year, and the number of photographers that I interviewed them over Zoom, so not everyone got to feature in that video, but I got to speak to them, which was great. Most of them were honestly traveling to these incredible places. But a lot of them had been using D850s and had recently transitioned to Z cameras, which was very interesting. So it seems to be going that way. We've got a few questions, which I'm going to make sure I do ask. John asks, are there any tips on cleaning a Z9 sensor? I know what my answer would be, but I'm going to... What's your answer?
Well, yeah, I would say obviously be very careful, because sensors at the end of the day are very, very delicate. And I have seen people scratch their sensors trying to clean them themselves.
Yes.
The official recommendation from Nikon is that you get it to us for a professional clean. That is the official recommendation.
Yeah.
Don't forget, most of our sort of mirrorless cameras, in fact, all of our mirrorless cameras do have a clean facility, which works quite well. You can do it as a one-off. You can do it on startup or shut down. And that will be quite effective if it's something like dust. If it's something that's maybe slightly sticky, like pollen or something wet, then you're not going to get it off with the in-camera sensor clean. So in those instances, have a professional clean. Some photographers like to wet clean their cameras, and we can't stop them doing that. And I'm sure many photographers do a great job of it, but the official recommendation is get it to us. If there is some dust on there, what you can do, if you're very, very careful, is turn the camera on, obviously turn the sensor shield off, and obviously the sensor shields are really good.
It's a great addition.
It's a great addition to the lineup, and we don't see many Z9s come in for cleans for that exact reason. I think it's very effective. But if you really have got a bit of dust on there, there's nothing you can do. I would say just turn the sensor shield off, carefully hold the camera upside down, and use a puffer, but not with a brush attachment, from a distance.
Yeah.
Two follow-up questions.
Anything too close to the sensor, it can be too dangerous.
Do you think the shield is going to be basically trickle down to other models?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. It would be a nice addition.
It would.
Often with these things, there are features that are going to be reserved for the top end cameras for obvious reasons. So I couldn't say with any certainty, but it would be nice if more future cameras had it, because it's a great addition. Yeah.
And the second question was the vibration reduction on the sensor.
Yeah.
Does it complicate things in terms of sensor cleans?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Stays the same?
No. In fact, from what I understand from technicians, actually, mirrorless cameras are slightly easier to clean than DSLRs were, because the sensor is actually closer to the by a long way, by about 25 mil. So yeah, it doesn't. But yeah, be careful if you're wanting to do it yourself.
Good advice. That would be my advice. I'd say get it done properly. But anyway, so... Then, my next question, Champagne Sumo asks, how much does it costs to be an NPS member? It doesn't cost anything.
It doesn't cost anything in the UK. It's actually free. We like to feel that we're just giving back to photographers that have invested in our equipment. So for the moment, there's certainly no plans to make it a paid model.
But there are some requirements.
There are requirements. You need to be a full-time working photographer, and you need a minimum of 6 pieces of pro, what we call current pro equipment, and that is from the D4S onwards, all the pro models.
Right.
So we count Z6 and Z7 in that as well.
Good.
Yeah. And also, D810 is still on there, D850, D4S, D5, D6, and of course Z9.
Yes.
So if you've got 2 of those and a minimum of 3 or more pieces of other pro kit, and you are a full-time working photographer, yeah, you can register.
Are you a full-time working photographer?
Yes. I take pictures in the shop all the time.
But just keep in mind, the viewers, if you're in the United States, that's a different story. I think they have 3 different levels of membership, and they're all paid ones. So we're talking about in UK it's free, but you have to qualify.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we do have a lot of viewers from the US. So,
of course, yeah.
So it's always good to just make sure they know that. Now, Roger asks, this is quite a good question, because we were talking about this before as well, were there any groups using NX Field at the World Cup?
That's a great question, and it ties in very nicely with my first picture that I had ready for you.
Yeah.
So yes, there were actually. Nikon worked very, very closely with AFP, who are a French photographic agency. Got a really good relationship with them, and they've installed cameras. Now, this picture, I wasn't able to get a picture from the World Cup, but this is a pod, which is basically a remote camera, which is connected to a robotic head, and this is all put together by MRMC, who are one of our, well, they're part of Nikon.
That's right. Basically, so that's Mark Roberts Motion Control. For anyone who doesn't
That's
know.
it, and these are the really clever guys, because they deal with robotics and in the cinema industry and so on.
Yeah.
But we had some of these cameras installed in some of the stadiums at the World Cup, including the Lusail Stadium where the final was played, and they're up in the catwalk. So I know I've seen things where people are saying, "Is this the end for photographers?" It's certainly not. It's just allowing cameras to be places where photographers can't get, so to get angles from dangerous angles and so on. And they've put these systems together. AFP were using them in conjunction with NX Field. So I didn't get to see the pods in action themselves, but I was in their office and they showed me how it worked. Basically, they're remote controlling numerous cameras. These remote cameras have Z9s in them with 100 to 400s they're using, actually.
Wow, interesting.
And they can remotely control them using NX Field. But not only can they control the cameras, but they can also have the cameras then FTPing the images back to their picture desk.
Yeah.
So this is functionality that none of our competitors can do to such a high degree. And they take it an even stage further as well at MRMC, because they've actually got this Polymotion player following as well. It goes a little bit above my head, but they're using information that's coming from FIFA to be able to actually track players. So you can set a camera to just track an individual player for the entire match.
That's amazing.
So it's really clever stuff. And seeing some of the imagery that came out from AFP at the World Cup, it really was allowing them to do things that photographers just couldn't do. So great piece of technology. Yeah.
We when we went to go and visit Mark Roberts, we did a little sort of tour, probably about 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago.
Yes.
Something like that. And that video is up on our channel somewhere. That was back when they had just launched that roaming studio that they created.
Yeah.
And they were using D5s and were just transitioning to D6s. And the software that they were using at that time was probably some kind of predecessor to what NX Field has become.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And I remember sitting there watching them controlling a robotic camera that was in the USA on the side of a baseball diamond, and I was like, "What?"
It's incredible. It's all over IP, so you can do anything instantaneously anywhere in the world. You don't actually have to be close to where the camera is. It's superb technology.
Absolutely shocking. Anyway, Sam said, "I heard the tracking once followed a bald referee rather than the ball it was supposed to be following." It's when AI gets too clever. As long as the ref was doing his job, it's fine.
They never do their jobs.
No,
you know that.
They don't. That's the unanimous opinion. So that's really interesting. So on NX Field, then, that's that's kind of the future of big international sports?
I think for a lot of sort of major picture agencies and so on, it's another way of being able to deliver more images. But there are so many more applications where you could use that. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't, not necessarily the robotics side of things,
sure,
but just NX Field to be able to remotely control a camera where you can't be.
Yeah.
When we loosely talked about this the other day, and I was wondering if I could do a live demo here, but it would have just been a little bit sort of convoluted and all the stuff I needed to have brought in.
Which would be great, but
one day, if you wanted to do one specifically for that, we could do.
We'll do we'll record it. Maybe we won't do it live.
Yeah,
it's already a challenge.
So yes, I mean, you can have a remote camera anywhere, and you can control every aspect of its functionality from an iPad. You can choose the focus point and so on, and then you can get those images sent anywhere. You can just look at all the images on your iPad, and instantaneously, and choose to send them somewhere via FTP. So there are a lot of applications where NX Field can really sort of change things for photographers. Yeah,
it's pretty stunning. I will also mention that Mark Roberts do hire out their rigs. So if ever you were in a position where you needed to use something like this or wanted to take advantage of something like that, definitely worth getting in touch with them. I remember we were watching them actually go through the motions of making a robot record the same pattern of movements, and the kind of concept was, okay, imagine you're shooting a Marvel film, because most people will know that reference, and you've got 12 superheroes or whatever that all come into the screen, but you can't film them all at the same time because there's different schedules, makeup, different scenery, etc., etc. So they will get the camera program to do the same motion repeatedly for all these different people coming in, so that then it can all be stitched together. It's so mind-bogglingly clever when you actually think about it.
Yeah, it really is.
So if you ever want to do something like that, you should look them up.
But quick question, do you think NX Field will ever be available to general public?
It is available.
It is available, so everyone can download it?
It's a free app. So in order to use it, you do need to have your camera upgraded, which is a chargeable service.
Oh, I see.
Only Nikon can do.
So you send it to Nikon Service Center, they upgrade it for you, and then it's free to use.
That's it, exactly. Okay. So you could download the NX Field app today. But you'd need to upgrade your cameras. But it's available for D6, Z9, Z6 and Z7 as well. So you can still use it with those cameras.
My Z6
it doesn't have to be the...
can be put to good use.
Yeah,
we should do that.
We should. Agile River asked, are there any wildlife photographers using NX Field? Are there any wildlife?
I mean, I'm not aware of any in the UK. I mean, globally there could well be. And as I said, that could be a really good application for it, where you're just, you don't want to disturb the wildlife that you're photographing, or, So it could be a good way of doing it. But not aware of any in the UK, but there could be globally, yeah.
I think Tom Mason, who's a wildlife photographer, he was actually, I looked at his Instagram stories yesterday, and he was just talking about the new lens 26, which the development announcement came out for, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And he was saying this could actually be a great little sort of camera trap lens. Right. So potentially NX Field in conjunction with camera, traps for wildlife. I mean, he's a person to speak to. Maybe we should look at doing something with him, and then it can be demonstrated for wildlife photography. But it's there's more uses, I think, than just sports and being on the side of a football pitch, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Surveillance and other things like that as well, where you can't get just any place where you can't necessarily get a photographer to be.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, exactly. Fred, thank you very, very much. He said, Becky, happy birthday. It's my birthday too. Many happy returns.
Happy birthday, Fred.
Fellow Capricorn. They're the best. Anyway, and thank you to Vince for your contribution to the coffee fund, which was mega appreciated. And to Jim. Yes, I didn't thank Jim either. So
did you thank Chris? We did, okay.
Thank you.
We caught up.
We caught up. Good. I like to just make sure I don't sometimes leave people behind, and then I can't get the chat back. John wants to know what the NX upgrade cost is for NX Field. Do you know off the top of your head?
I should have come here
prepared.
It's around about £250.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have the exact figure. I should have had it, and I thought about that on the way. I should have come prepared with it, but yeah, about that, there and thereabouts.
So similar to Z6 Raw upgrade, which was about £250. Okay.
Yeah, but we can do it. We can do it very, very quickly for you.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I didn't totally understand John's question about MPS, but after that, Nick Han, hello, nice to see you today, said, is the NX Field just Mac operating system centric, or does it work with PCs?
Yeah, so you can run it off an iPad or an iPhone, but not on Android devices.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Good to know.
I guess not yet.
Not yet. I mean, maybe there will be in the future.
Yeah, sure. I suppose it also depends on what press offices are using. It seems like Mac is kind of
most agencies, and they do tend to go that way, and iPhones as well. So it's a logical choice. Really.
Yeah, fair enough. Nigel says, been using Nikon cameras since 1986 with my first f3 HP. Always been the best. So thank you for sharing that anecdote. It's long may it continue for you, Nigel. So you had another question.
Well, I want to go to all the nitty-gritty of Nikon servicing department in Qatar. So I assume lots of sense cleans throughout the day.
Lots of sense cleans,
Tell us some horror stories. Did you see any disaster happening? Someone bring in the 400mm, broken in half or something like this. Well, did you experience anything like that?
I actually didn't. I wish I had some really juicy stories for you about lenses broken in half. I mean, we've seen it in the past. We have seen things like that. But no, I wasn't aware of many breakages. People were being very careful with their equipment.
All pros are very careful?
Yeah, most of them are, I wouldn't say they all are, but certainly most of them. But no, we were there to, as I said, provide checks and cleans to make sure that their cameras were working okay, and they were kept updated with the latest firmware. Actually, firmware 3 came out whilst we were firmware version 3 for the Z9, which, as you guys know, was a massive one. So many huge improvements there. That came out whilst the World Cup was on, so we were updating everyone's cameras there as well. But no, I wasn't aware of any. I'm just trying to think. Usually at an event, there's always someone that drops something. Quite often we have photographers turn up at events where sadly their equipment hasn't made it off the plane. That happens quite a lot. So we got, so we can go, right, there you go, there's a whole load of equipment for you to use until you're
breaking, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it can be, but that's why we're there. And many photographers had to rely on us in that sort of situation at other events, but I wasn't aware of any such at the World Cup.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question off the back of Mike's question, which is actually not a question. Mike was saying that he said high frame rate, auto ISO in aperture priority on Z9 does not work. So it was more a statement than anything. But that could be a camera specific thing. When it comes to when someone is having an issue with, let's say, a Z9 or a piece of pro equipment or whatever, do they have a route to kind of flag these things up so that either NPS or someone higher up knows that then can be implemented into firmware updates?
Do you mean if there is a kind of an issue with the camera?
Yeah, just like in general,
absolutely.
as opposed to a specific. Yeah. Obviously, if there's one thing that's not working with your specific camera, then you need to contact the people that you bought it from. If it's us, then you let us know and we help you out with it. If it's something that seems to crop up
a generic issue.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I kind of have a system called Voice of the Professional, and that is basically a route that goes from me to Nikon Japan through our European technical office. I don't even remember my old NPS colleague Arta.
I do.
Lovely Arta. He now works in the European technical office. So any sort of issues like that, I'll flag with him. He'll flag with Japan. Often they come back to the customer with further questions to try and identify exactly what the issue is.
Yeah.
And I think especially these days with cameras like the Z9 just being so much more automated than before, than they ever were with even DSLR. There can be more little bugs and things like that need to be looked at, and also the guys in Japan are constantly evolving, especially things like the autofocus system. So for instance, a photographer last year told me that he was away in Africa shooting parrots in particular, and there was one kind of specific bird that the camera's AI just wouldn't recognise it, and obviously it hadn't yet been programmed into the camera. So we fed that back, and again, they're using that information to constantly evolve and improve. So there's definitely a route, and I've seen that more in the past year with the Z9 than ever before. And the guys in Japan are actually hungry to get that feedback.
Yeah.
We all know what's good about the camera, and the Z9, it's a fantastic camera, but there are always little things that can be kind of improved and tweaked and so on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is very, very good to know. So hopefully there will be...
Don't start bombarding me with the questions.
But hopefully that gives you, if you do kind of have an issue or you've seen something, I mean, we have various different things come up, and if we can't solve them in the shop, then we often, I will email you and say, I can't solve this problem. Most of the time it's not a bigger issue, but if it is, it's good to know that there's a way of feeding that back. And
that little MLL7 the other day.
Yeah.
That was a learning process process for me as well, because I hadn't even played with one of those at that point.
No.
So we got one out and we just about worked it out. But
I too was there sitting there trying to. So we had a remote control which a photographer was trying to use for a specific purpose, and it turned out that the MLL7 did kind of do some part of it, but didn't do another part of it. And anyway, between us all and the office, the NPS office, we figured it out. But it's very, very helpful to be able to do that. We will kind of briefly touch on the Z9 service advisory. I'm going to do that in a bit, Roger. So put a pin in that, because I will ask that in a minute. We've got some more pictures that we'd love to share, that Rob brought along, that would be great to share. So maybe you can kind of talk us through them.
Well, I just brought along a few examples of what I thought were sort of different examples of the Z9 being used in different circumstances. I think we've all seen a lot of pictures of Z9s of taking on Z9 of birds in flight and things like that online. But this is more from the kind of the environments that we work in. So
another World Cup picture.
Absolutely. That's a dive there.
Yes.
So I mean, this one in particular, again, AFP photographer, very talented photographer called Ben Stansell. This was taken at the World Artistic Gymnastics Championships, which was in Liverpool last year.
Oh wow!
And I just asked Ben about this picture and asked him for just a sort of little soundbite about the Z9, and he just loves the way that the autofocus can keep up with fast moving subjects. So that would have traditionally been a very, very challenging thing for a camera to photograph. You know, she's spinning around. I presume that's a floor. I don't know. My knowledge of gymnastics isn't that great, but
it's presumably
the floor. And she's jumped up and he's kind of caught her there. And I think this also demonstrates a really great dynamic range of the Z9 as well.
For sure.
But if we go to the next image, the next one is an example of what you can do if you slow the camera down. Because everyone knows, how fast the Z9 is.
Yeah.
But Ben dropped to 1/10 of a second for this one. So it just gives you a really nice, slightly more beautiful sort of artistic approach. Yeah. And what Ben told me about this one was that even on 1/10 of a second, he was able to rely on the camera's face detector. And the face detector was still working even when the gymnast, she didn't turn around to pose for him.
No.
So the face detector was still working there, which meant that it could just keep him, as I said before, it kind of frees the photographer up to concentrate on other things, just concentrate on the composition and so on,
and
to
the
get
kind
a more
of
artistic shot.
Exactly, and the art of it as opposed to the technical, trying to actually nail focus or anything like that. Do you know what lens he used for this?
No, I should have asked, and I don't know how far away he was. I'm going to guess that was a 70 to 200.
Right. Could have been longer, could have been...
My colleagues worked at the event there last year, but I wasn't there myself, so I'm not exactly sure how close the photographers were getting for each event.
That's amazing.
Yeah, should we go to the...
Yeah, we can go to the next one.
I mean, we've got a few to go through, so I'll go through them quickly. But so just to show that the Z9's getting out there, used in the field for kind of news stories and so on.
I know this guy.
Yes, you know this guy.
A famous gymnast.
Relatively topical and relatively new. I like this image in particular. It was taken by Nikon ambassador Leon Neal, who works for Getty Images. Very, very talented photographer. The way that he's kind of highlighted his face with a burst of flash. But just to show that the Z9's out there being used by a lot of professionals, and a lot of the images that you're seeing in the papers and magazines have been taken by Z9.
Yeah, for sure.
The next shot, again taken by Leon Neal, something that you may not have seen so much. This was the night before the Queen's committal. They were actually practicing in the middle of the night, and Leon said it was a really eerie sight. But I just love the way that he's caught this backlit military person there.
It's incredible.
It's just beautiful, isn't it? It's just really nice. There's something quite kind of sombre about it.
And also painterly about it, because you think it's kind of, it looks like a painting or a drawing as opposed to a photograph, which is really interesting.
And very hard to focus as well.
That's another point, actually. I did think of that. It was a very challenging lighting situation there. So, the cameras nailed it, to get that rim light just perfect. Yeah.
Exactly. And then this one.
Moving on to the next one, this was taken by Dylan Martinez, who works for Reuters. Again, very, very talented sports photographer. I actually used this going back since the velodrome event we did last year, but I think it's a great example of how kind of hardy, robust and durable the Z9 is. So this was taken from the Beijing Winter Olympics about a year ago, when the Z9 had only just really come out. And this is of the aerial skiing, so they flip up in the air and so on. And Dylan was telling me at these night events it was getting as low as minus 30 degrees.
Oh my goodness. And this was working?
This was working. The Z9 continued to work, and anecdotally, all of our competitors' cameras and batteries were just failing. So the Z9's battery just keeps going and going. So where you want the ultimate in reliability, ruggedness and weather sealing, you know, the Z9 really is the camera for the job.
Yeah. In fact, someone asked earlier, David Liu, who is also known as Dixon, thank you very much for your contribution to the Coffee Fund, said, how many batteries do you have to have on hand for an event like the World Cup?
It's a good question. I mean, I guess it depends exactly what you're doing. For most photographers, a battery will easily last a football match, easily, unless they're shooting. I mean, obviously with the Z9 you can shoot very, very fast if you want. You know, you could shoot 30 frames a second. You could even shoot 120 frames a second. But most photographers probably ramp it down to like 15, 20, something like that. But most photographers, I would say on average, probably take something like 1,500, 2,000 shots at a football match, something like that. Some are a bit more trigger happy than others, but some are just so talented that they'll just get one shot and it will just be the shot that goes on the back pages. But for most photographers, one battery, obviously they'll have more, but one battery will cover you for at least a football match.
Amazing. Dave was saying in that minus 30 degrees, he said the camera might function then, but I certainly wouldn't. I think I'm with him there. Very cold.
This is true. Quite sadly, actually, someone got frostbite and lost their fingers.
Oh my goodness.
On one of those events. It was an OBS cameraman, apparently didn't have gloves.
Goodness me. Yeah, you don't want to go without gloves. This is a lovely shot.
It's a really beautiful shot, isn't it? This is from a very talented automotive photographer called Ollie Tennant, who's moved over from another brand this year to the Z9, and I think this was from one of his very first outings with the Z9, and this was in the summer, I guess early sunrise in the summer. Beautiful misty shot, and it really caught my eye, and I asked Ollie if we could use this for the talk. I'm not sure, I didn't ask him too much about what settings he was using. I'm sure this could kind of provoke that kind of question. Perhaps a vehicle detect, because obviously that bike's coming towards him presumably at some speed. But I just thought it was beautiful. It just shows you the kind of the tonality of the Z9, the dynamic range as well, and the way it can cope with, you know, what's quite a challenging situation. Another one from the same shoot. I really like this. It's just the bike in the mist with the early morning sunlight coming through. It's just very pretty, isn't it?
It is, and very
nice.
kind of atmospheric. You know, you can. I mean, as Nigel says, that Nikon color is stunning right out of the box. It is. There is definitely the colors of all of these shots are something that I'm really noticing and that really stand out to me. So, very, very, very nice. This was a macro shot.
It's a macro shot.
I approve.
Just showing that, you know, there are so many different areas where photographers want the Z9. This is an incredibly talented natural history and wildlife and macro specialist called Robert Thompson in Northern Ireland, who's known to you guys because he is actually
very well.
And he said I could mention it. I think he's writing in the next Nikon Owner magazine.
He is indeed. In the next Nikon Owner, he's got a brilliant article on I'm just trying to think, is it on the 105 macro? Yes, it is. It's on the 105 macro lens. So that's interesting. He did write for us in an earlier issue on his kind of transition to the Z system, having used the D850 for years before. So this is great. I'm always a big lover of macro. So very, very nice indeed.
Yeah, I think Robert would forgive me for saying I don't know if he was ready or realised initially the advantages that mirrorless would bring, and when he first used a Z9 he was just blown away with it. I don't think he'd use anything else.
Pleasantly surprised. What's this cutie? That's a porcupine, right?
This is a porcupine. I believe it's a porcupine in Kenya, taken by another very, very talented wildlife photographer called Gary Davis, and he sent me this, and he said that the Z9 is simply a game changer, and it just keeps getting better and better with firmware, and I love that. If we get onto any of my images, you'll see that I just love reflections. It's it's the thing I like, and that is just stunning. So it's sort of a different approach to wildlife. Really like it. I don't know exactly how that light was achieved, but it's beautiful, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Really, really nice. Yeah.
And then this one, this is cool. Who are these people?
So this is the Spanish pop singer Rosalía.
Right.
And I won't pretend that I'm down with the kids and know exactly who she is.
Too old.
Yeah, this was taken by a Nikon ambassador, Samir Hussain, who's a very, very talented entertainment and royal photographer. But I really liked it. I liked the composition. I just liked the colours in there. Yeah. And just to show another example of when the Z9's getting used, you know, concert photography, theatres, that kind of thing as well. Yeah. So it's not just sort of sports news and wildlife and the things that we typically see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which one's next?
This is one of friend of Gray's, Tom Cruise.
Oh, yes.
I thought it would be remiss of me not to include this one.
Absolutely.
This was from the premiere of Maverick at the Cannes Film Festival last year.
Oh,
I just like it. I just like the light. But just, again, showing another example of the Z9 being used out in the field.
Yeah, on the red carpet. So red carpet photography as well as sports, as well as wildlife, as well as entertainment. It's really getting out there. It's really a great film, by the way. Have you seen it? Yes.
It's enjoyable. It's really enjoyable.
IMAX is absolutely brilliant. It's definitely a feel-good film. My youngest was like, I got bragging rights. I saw it on the first weekend of release. It's cute.
We don't have to go. I mean, these are just my snaps. So this was just me. So basically, I didn't want it to be like the Z9 show because not everyone's in the market for the Z9 at the end of the day. And just to show that we are, you know, our whole lineup is really, really strong. I took a Z7 to Qatar with me, and I like taking a few shots. And because I was working evenings, it got me time to get out in the day. This was actually on the way to the, you can see the England and Wales match. The metro in Doha is incredible. It was only built a few years ago. And it's all beautifully pristine. They're all driverless trains. You get one every 3 minutes without fail.
Amazing.
And you know, like in the do you know at Waterloo, on the Waterloo and City line, they've got the kind of the doors that open in front of them. So they've got those in every metro station, but they're all mirrored. So I thought it would be the opportunity to try and get an image sort of looking along there without being too obtrusive. I think with the Z7 you can be, you know, slightly less in people's faces than you would with a Z9 and not so much look like a professional. So I just like the symmetry of that. It kind of tells a story, doesn't it? About
and at least a couple of England supporters in there.
Who they are.
There did seem to be more Welsh supporters at the match, to be fair.
Interesting. That was a very conflicting match for me, considering I'm half and half. So I was like, I didn't watch it. Just so I wasn't biased. I can see the love of reflections in this one. Did you put this one on your Instagram?
I did, yeah. So this was in a beautiful little part of Doha, a beautiful little town, if you like, called Qatar, where they've got this wonderful mosque. And obviously it doesn't rain out there, but someone had probably cleaned the streets because it was all immaculate.
Right.
Actually, this place has air-conditioned streets.
Wow.
So you can walk down the street in the middle of the day in
and
40-degree heat, and it just feels like 15 degrees.
Wow.
But yeah, I saw this puddle and I saw the opportunity to just get a nice little shot with a reflection in there. The next shot I took is from inside the mosque, and it was actually more picturesque outside, to be fair, than it was inside. So I thought I'd look out, and I just really love this polished floor and the kind of the effect it gave. But I think what I was trying to demonstrate by showing you this image is just the dynamic range. I mean, there was such an incredible difference in exposure between the outside and the inside. But just to retain some of the sort of the shimmer on those gold things on the wall, on the inside, whilst sort of rendering the outside the correct exposure.
Yeah, so you can actually
and that's all on the Z7. It's not even the Z7 II. I'm still using the Z7, so it's still a little bit archaic there. So that was the sort of the things that I was doing.
I mean, those first-gen cameras are still very, very strong. I say we use Z6s for all our kind of in the field shooting and stuff. So I'm a big fan of those. I'm waiting to see what happens next. But I don't think I'll upgrade until something just right comes out for me. What's this next one?
Okay.
This is the kind of stuff I really like doing for my Instagram, which is why they're all kind of uprights. But it was just some of the Christmas lights. I know traditionally Christmas is more about snow, but I love rain. I just love it after it's rained because you can get these lovely reflections. And just by very carefully placing the camera in a puddle or just above a puddle, you can get some kind of nice symmetry and some nice little reflections. Yeah. And I've got an easy job to do there when it already looks really pretty. Really? I mean, my pictures are always kind of deliberately a little bit oversaturated, and that's the way I like them.
Yeah.
The next one coming up is also... that's from just off of Carnaby Street. Yes. And the things actually say ho 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 because it's in Soho.
As opposed to oh ho,
back to front. So it says oh.
Yeah,
but again, it was just a kind of a sort of a pretty opportunity with a puddle.
Yes.
And then there was one more I took in Bond Street. I literally had a few seconds to take this because there were cars coming down the road, and I stuck it on one of those manhole covers.
I was like, don't try this at home, folks.
Slightly different texture to it. What I would have liked to have done was left the camera in place and maybe stopped down the aperture a bit more and had a long exposure. So I'd got light trails either side.
Oh, that would
be
one
one-way
cool.
street, but I would have been risking the camera to do that. I didn't want to do it.
No, exactly.
So that's the kind of stuff I like doing, and just whilst the Z9 is the kind of the ultimate tool for the professional, the Z6 and Z7 II are still like really, really amazing cameras. And the Z7, if I was asked to go out, I'm no sports photographer, but if I was asked to go out and shoot a football match, for instance, obviously I'd take a Z9. But for me, the ultimate travel camera is a Z7 II. I just love it.
I mean, it's nice if you've got the opportunity to take a camera of choice as opposed to you've got the camera that you've got. Obviously, not everyone has that ability, but it is very, very nice to see the Z7 and the Z7 IIs getting their spotlight as well. Yeah. We did have a couple of questions that I will try.
While you're looking at this, I'm going to check all the active data of all those images.
Okay.
Just to check if there's some camera that doesn't exist yet.
Okay, you can do that. That's fine.
Rob's pretty confident that you're going to find anything.
Yeah. You already removed all the traces.
That's it. Okay. I stripped it all.
Smooth criminal.
Yeah, exactly. So Steve and a couple of other people actually a bit earlier were saying, love the Z6 II or the Z7 II. Do you think that, and this is a loaded question a little bit, so my apologies if you can't say anything, but do you think there will be any firmware updates that might more utilize the second autofocus processor in there, or do you think we've kind of reached the limit on those?
I think probably it's got close to as far as it will get with hardware,
right.
To be fair. I mean, obviously the Z7 and Z6 II are very, very capable cameras, and the autofocus is great, but the focus in the Z9 is better just because of using different hardware. So I'm sure we'll see some more little incremental upgrades, but I think nothing fundamentally better. But everything I've ever done with the Z7 or Z7 II when I've used one of those for pictures of my kids, absolutely spot on. Little kids running around, and the AF face recognition is really, really good. I don't do anything with animals, to be fair, but I think they're great. But I'm sure we will always see improvements with future products. That's the way it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Albert asked an interesting question. He said, "Is the Nikon SP still serviced with Nikon UK?" I mean, I know the answer to that one.
No,
the SP, no.
As in rangefinder.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not. I don't think so. I mean, with a lot of these things, we do get questions about older products, and typically it's going to be down to parts.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why one of our good technicians couldn't repair an older camera, but if parts are required, it's just not going to be feasible.
Yeah, it's difficult to say where you would still whether or not Nikon would still have parts for a camera that's nearly 70 years old. It's slightly unlikely. I mean, we've seen even in recent years things like the FM3A and the F6s, which haven't been discontinued that long in comparison to something like an SP, but there just are no parts for them anymore. So you have to kind of look down slightly different routes to get something like that repaired. I know we talked about it a little bit before the stream, but there's no kind of set amount of time that things stay serviceable for us.
10 years after discontinuation.
No, it doesn't work like that. It's all going to be really down to parts. And if there's a repair that we can do that doesn't require parts, obviously we will do it, even if it's an older piece of equipment. Actually, last year, whilst working at Wimbledon, one of the official photographers there brought along his F3. And the technician absolutely loved, sort of taking it apart, or not taking it apart, but giving it a little service and a clean up. He really enjoyed that because we don't see so many cameras. And it was an older technician who knew it, remembered it from first time round. And it was nice, really nice.
That.
Yeah, and obviously the photographer was really happy. Got a service. Yeah.
So there's still people at Nikon who can service the old stuff.
There are. Yeah. I mean, not as many as there used to be, but we've still got technicians that can do them.
Hand down this legacy of being able to repair these older cameras.
Yeah.
Sam, will Nikon release a Z-mount film camera? I don't think so. would be nice, but would kind of slightly defeat the purpose. But what I'm after is a ZF. I'm going to keep sort of campaigning for some kind of retro-styled Z full frame camera that is not a ZFC but is FX.
ZF over Z8.
Yeah, that would
Z7 III, Z6 III.
Yeah, 100%. I would absolutely do that. Agile River made a good point and said, please give the stream a like. We've got 254 people watching and 139 likes, so it would be lovely if you could give the stream a like. What is your Instagram handle for anyone that wants to pop over and have pictures?
It's at Rob MacNeice, which is my name with no gaps or anything.
So
it's MacNeice. Thank you for the little plug.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Roger said just popped over to Rob's Instagram. Really nice work. So there you go. Yeah, if you have a moment, please go and head over there. John asked if MPS service stuff. Do you service stuff yourself, or do you send it over to the service centre in Europe now?
Yeah, so some of the stuff is done in the UK at our service centre here, but some of it is sent abroad. It depends what it is.
Yeah.
Obviously, most MPS stuff is done in the UK.
Yes.
So to get a priority. But we've got a very, very good service centre in Europe now that we use for a lot of work. And the turnaround time is no different. You know, really good, very, very talented, good technicians.
What's the average time for non-NPS and NPS?
It depends what it is. I mean, most NPS stuff, a week to 2 weeks, something like that. Parts willing. I mean, last year we were sort of still, because we had the parts factory change, so not everything was as quick as we would have liked, but most stuff should go through in a week or so, as long as the parts are available. The parts situation is much better now. It's getting really good.
It is. Yeah. We've also noticed, because obviously we do sometimes get cameras that need to be sent off to Nikon, and the turnaround time is generally faster. Rubaid, I'm sorry, I mispronounce your handle every single week, but anyway, says, do we in Sweden have local MPS, or are they sent down to the continent?
So in Sweden, there are authorised repair centres that do the MPS work there. Yeah, there is MPS in Sweden.
Good, so it doesn't have to sort of go miles away to be done.
No, it's done in the country.
Excellent. Yeah. And then Frank made a suggestion. He said, as a macro photography enthusiast, is anyone working on or thinking about bug eye autofocus? I'm sure it'd be very challenging, but it would be great to have. Could you imagine how cool that would be?
It would be great, wouldn't it? I mean, I know I've spoken to photographers that have found that the eye detect works on animals they wouldn't expect it to work on.
Yeah.
Bugs, I don't know. I mean, bugs can be really, their eyes can be on stalks.
Yeah.
But so it's not like...
it's like tiny little points.
Yeah, so
of
someone
darkness.
would have to write that into the algorithm of the camera.
Yeah.
So send us some bug pictures and maybe we'll work on it.
Lots of them, yeah.
A lot of samples of lots of different bugs, and maybe it can happen. But yes, it would be challenging technologically, I think. Interesting. Daniel said, do you know why the lens foot is not Arca Swiss type? I mean, we have asked this question a couple of times, but you might have a take on it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not something that, to my knowledge, that any lens or camera manufacturer does. I can certainly see the need for doing that.
Yeah.
And it is something that we have fed back as a suggestion before, but I think there would need to be a sort of enough photographers wanting it. But it does pave the way for sort of other accessories, doesn't it? And other companies to produce these sort of bolt-ons and so on.
Which they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a really nice three-legged thing. Mount for mine.
Yeah, I've got a three-legged thing, L plate for mine. You use the Peak Design tripod, which is Arca Swiss compatible, and has its Arca Swiss plates. There's definitely an opening for other brands. A small rig, I'm producing some great stuff now, small accessories. We did a couple of videos on the Z30 one recently.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the other mounts, and I think that you got Arca Swiss as probably the most popular one, but I think the second most popular one would be probably Manfrotto mount. Is that correct? Or
I don't know.
Well, Manfrotto do different mounts, don't they? I mean, traditionally they always had the hexagonal.
Oh, that's right.
They've had square ones. They've had different ones. Like, I think the only one that is really any kind of industry standard is the Arca Swiss.
Arca Swiss, yeah.
So I can understand the questioning behind that. And I don't know the answer. But
it does make sense if, with so many mounts on offer, it's like Nikon and other manufacturers will just do their own thing and then allow you to customize it how you want. Bit like supplying it's slightly different, but supplying a camera strap. Most people won't necessarily use the camera strap that's supplied with the camera if they don't want the big yellow and black and Nikon steal me all over it. And they might go for something a bit more discreet or better suited to their build or whatever. So
like a small rig strap that we just got sent.
Like the small rig strap.
We will show it to you next week.
We will.
This is just a masterpiece of design.
It's something else. We're both big fans of the Peak Design straps, for example, because you can literally fit your anchors to any camera and then you just chop and change instead of having to take your individual straps off. So anyway,
yeah, I've got those. So they're great, aren't they?
Yeah, really, really good. So I think I answered all those questions. I think we've answered most of the questions. Well done, us.
Yeah, I think
we managed to do it in an hour.
Absolutely.
Did you have any other questions?
Well, I don't know if you should pick your brain on the new announcements or not, or shall we leave it for another time?
Well, in a few words, do you know anything beyond what the press release said?
Quite genuinely nothing.
You haven't seen anything in person?
I've seen the press release and that's it. I mean, I'm excited by the new lenses that we announced. Was it yesterday? Day before? I can't remember. Day before.
Day before, yeah.
Very excited about them. I think the pancake lens is going to be great, and the 85, if it's following in the footsteps of the 50, will be. Which I've used the 50, which is just a beautiful lens to use actually. So I think it will be much sought after amongst wedding and portrait photographers and so on.
For sure, very much looking forward to seeing it when it comes out. We've got big plans if the 85 manages to make itself our way. Andy asked the question, will Nikon Europe or someone else provide a video of the Nikon World Cup coverage and setup? I don't know if anyone, because sometimes when you do shows, you do like time lapses and stuff.
I think we're probably a little bit restricted on that because we kind of go there almost as guests on the understanding that we're helping the photographers. We're not officially associated with FIFA. So as much as it would be great to see, I don't think we'd be able to do that, unfortunately. There are events where we can do things like that. So the Open, where we're a patron, and we will be for the next 5 years as well. Right. So from time to time, you may see a video of Nikon at the Open, but not events where we're there, but we're not official, if you know what I mean.
Yes, exactly what you mean. And then last question, I promise, is on because I said I would touch on the Z9 recall. Obviously, you were saying to me before, and John, I think, was saying, with the cameras or the sort of band of cameras that Nikon have said are affected, is it actually as an even smaller amount and they're just erring on the side of caution?
Yeah. I mean, the reality is we're being incredibly cautious with this.
Right.
There have been very, very few cases of the cameras actually failing. But we want to just make sure that everyone's got that peace of mind if they so wish. Yeah. So I think the advice is to register it on the website. We will let you know. It's check if the serial number is affected. If it is, we will let you know when we're ready to take in your camera, because we have to do them in batches. We can't do them in one go.
Of course.
But the reality is you should be able to continue to use your camera with confidence in the meantime.
Keep going. Yeah. And any idea on turnaround time once they send their camera off?
It's really quick. It's only a few days. I'm not sure the exact turnaround time, but because we're managing it in that way, rather than having a bottleneck, we're managing it sort of cameras, a few cameras in a batch. So we should be able to handle it and turn it around really, really quickly for you. So I wouldn't worry. It's not an issue, not something that you have to worry about, but we will handle it.
So it's done in-house, it doesn't go to Europe or anywhere, so it's all done in UK?
It's all done at our service centre in the UK, yeah.
Perfect.
Excellent. Yeah. Hopefully that's answered all your questions on the subject of the Z9 recall. We will probably pick Rob's brain for a little bit longer, but we're not going to do it live. Just in case he tells us any industry secrets.
Yeah, Z8 and all that. Nothing important, nothing to see here.
However, what I will say is thank you so much for all your contributions to the Coffee Fund and your birthday wishes and your New Year's wishes. And to anyone who's also celebrating a birthday today or over the weekend or in the last week, many happy returns to you too, because I know there's a few of you out there. Thank you, Rob, for coming in and chatting to us. It's been great.
No, it's absolutely been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We will do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, look forward to it.
And have a wonderful weekend all. We'll see you next week. We will have our Nikon report. We will have another live stream.
The coverage continues.
We'll have other things. Stay tuned and have a good weekend. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.